What's up, friends? Today we are here with the Maxfind Max 6. This is the first Maxfind board that has been on the channel, and it may end up being the last after this review. It's going to be a spicy one, so stay tuned until the very end. See all of my numbers and how this thing compares to all the other boards that I've reviewed. Now let's just set this straight here at the beginning. My goal is not to destroy this board in this review, but my goal is to show you my perspective as someone who's ridden a lot of electric skateboards, as someone who's looked at a lot of electric skateboard web pages, and as someone who is fed up with the stupid overrating of certain specs. So we're going to jump into this, and first off, we're just going to talk briefly through the web page. Now, the first thing, I covered this briefly in my first look video. The first thing that jumps out when you search it on Google is that they claim that they have 31 miles of range, which is just hilarious because we ended up getting 11.05. One of the worst performances in overrating that I've seen in all of the boards that I reviewed to date. So there's 1 point off from the beginning, but we're just going to go through the webpage and talk through a couple of the specs, and then I'll go into who this board may be for and why I might suggest searching for another board. So straight off the top, we've got unmatched range, definitely matched range by a lot of other boards. And we're just going to scroll through a little bit here. First thing you see is the high density, high energy Samsung battery. The cells in here are 50G cells, which is sort of like an energy cell, not as much of a power cell. In other words, it has a low discharge rate, but when you use it at that low discharge rate, it does have a decent amount of amp hours. So that's why they can claim 10 amp hours. It's also a 10S2P battery. 10S is kind of like an ancient technology at this point if you compare to today's modern boards from Ace Deck and Propel and Meepo and all that. Everyone's on 12S now, and I see no good reason at all for this to be on 10S. The only reason I can think is that they wanted the board to be lighter, but I mean, 4 more cells, what's that going to be? That's like, what, 50 grams per cell, 200 grams more. It's really not that big of a deal. So I think they should have picked a different cell and made it 12S. But anyways, battery aside, it does hit the claimed top speed. So that's good at least. The deck, of course, right off the bat is a plastic deck made of PPS plastic with like a rubbery grip tape. I do not like this grip tape at all. It works, it's not shock absorbing like the webpage says, but it does work. It just isn't as grippy as regular grip tape. And I definitely wouldn't want it to get wet. We do have the Cloudwheels on here, which are decently comfortable. And to be honest, as much as I don't like the idea of a plastic deck, and I don't like how it flexes and how it feels like it might break, the feel of it is not that bad. However, we come to another thing that they claim is that the deck is super wide. It is not super wide. I want to say it's 9.5 inches, I believe. I took B-roll of this, but it's not that wide. It's not 11 inches wide. I don't know where they could possibly have gotten that number from. Even if you measure the curve, I don't think it would get to 11 inches. It'd be cool if it was 11 inches wide because then it'd probably be a lot more comfortable, but as it is, my feet almost hang off the edges, and it's not it. The concave on it is all right, could be better. The RGB lighting is, it's fine. Not really that interesting, and not nearly as good as some of the options from Backfire and X-Way. The belt drive is fine, it works. They claim impressive range, really not impressive range of 11 miles. It's okay if you compare it to the really cheap boards or the short boards, but it's not good when you compare it to other things like the Meepo Envy, which is ironically very close to the price point of this Max 6. We do have forged trucks on here and hobbywing ESC in the back. The trucks are garbage, as well as the bushings. The combination together is probably one of the worst ride feels that I've ever experienced, honestly, it rivals the Meepo V5 in terms of ride feel. I don't know what they did with these bushings, but I mean, we have barrels on the board side, cones on the road side. They do not turn. I don't understand how it could be this bad. It's just not good at all. We have TPU gears on the belt drives. I think these are pretty interesting. I actually, one thing I will give them praise for here is that I have not had a single rock get stuck in these pulleys. And I do think that that is because of the more slippery texture of TPU. I just think the rocks don't get stuck in it as easily. So at least you have one positive note of innovation there per se. These are 45-degree trucks. I don't know why they're so bad. I couldn't tell you. It does claim to connect to the Tuya app. I didn't try because honestly, I don't really feel the need to configure a board like this when I'm just going to ride it in maximum mode the whole time. So yeah, there's my small amount of ranting about the webpage, but we'll get into the actual specifics of this board through the performance and the RBEM score. Off the bat, who should buy this board? Honestly, I don't really know who they're targeting with this one. If you're a kid, you're not gonna be able to turn it because the trucks are too stiff. Even if you loosen them up a bit, they still just feel bad. You can't turn like you can on, for example, the X-Wave Flex 2 Pro, which has some of the best out-of-the-box bushings that I've ever tried, besides Riptide ones. But if you're a beginner, sure, you can get away with this, but with the low range and low power, you're really better off going a different direction. Yeah, I don't really know who exactly this board is for, especially because the price point is so high at $630. Now, hold on, let me double check. I don't want to misquote this because, sorry, $579, but that's on sale. I was thinking of a different board, but still, $579 is pretty dang high. Oh, no, I was right. Yeah, $630 with the 105mm Cloudwheels. You can get it a little cheaper if you go with the 90mm wheels. So, yeah, $630 is so much of a high price that it's basically competing with the Meepo Envy. And if you look at the numbers, there's a clear winner there. For example, I don't want to lean too heavily towards one brand or another, but objectively, this board is probably going to miss a lot of targets for most people. So let's go ahead and move on after 7 minutes of rambling to the performance section and then the RBEM score, and then we'll close it out with my final thoughts on this board from Maxfind. All right, let's dive into the performance characteristics of the Max 6. Now we're going to go through one by one like we do for every other board, starting with the acceleration. Now, acceleration on this board is nice and smooth and predictable. However, it's not very quick, and it comes in towards the bottom of our chart at 6.48 seconds, 0 to 20. For comparison, the top performing boards in the production world, like the ASTEC Nomad N3, is over 3 times quicker than that. Now, of course, the dollars are 4 times more, but you know, you have to consider these things when you are making an investment into a device like this. Now, with that 6.48, not super quick. Nearby it is my 10S onboard DIY and the Flex ER from several years ago as well. Now, being a new product, I would expect a little bit better acceleration out of this, especially with the Hobbywing V6 ESC. Again, I wish these companies would put the actual Hobbywing spec number on it. But in any case, the 100-meter sprint did not fare much better. It is in pretty much the same place, closer to the bottom of the board at 12.31 seconds for its 100-meter sprint. Again, lower on the performance side than I would like to see for this price point. Next up, braking. Again, really on the lower side here, coming in at 27.6 feet. And honestly, the braking on this thing is so bad that when you're going at its top speed of between 26 and 28 miles an hour, it's actually concerning slowing down, because it feels like you might not slow down all the way. And when you're coming to a stop, the last 10 feet or whatever is really dragged out. So when I was riding this and doing the range tests, I almost didn't brake soon enough for some of the stop signs because I thought that it was going to brake faster. So think of that what you will, but honestly, even like the X-Way Wave and those boards, they have longer stopping distances, but the way that the brake curve is done is more predictable. So, and those are very different boards. Flex ER, that thing really had some bad braking distance in it. But anyway, we're not talking about those boards. Average to poor braking performance, to be honest. Moving on to the stall torque tests. We come in a little bit higher here than I would have expected, and I think this is because we do have larger tire or wheels on here. So the torque that you need to drive something like that is going to be a little bit higher than some of these hub boards that it scored above. So we did score in at 12.43 Newton meters of stall torque, and that's about right smack dab in the middle. You don't feel it for very long though, because it gets left behind by all these other boards that out accelerate it. In terms of max speed, I said 26 to 28 earlier. I don't know why I said that. The max speed that I was able to reach was 25.6. If you're going downhill, you can go faster. I think the max I ever got to on this board was 28 or 29 going down a hill, and then it promptly slowed to its other speed going up the hill of like 14 miles an hour. So it doesn't have the power to support that top speed up hills like some of the other boards with more powerful ESCs do. So it does come in on the lower side, and it's kind of funny to see the Meepo V5 being so close to it, because the Meepo V5 is much cheaper, and it is hubs. So there you go, that's all of those performance characteristics. And if we go over and swipe into our PSPEC score, we can see that it comes out to a score of 28.1. Now, just to summarize the numbers again, acceleration 0 to 20, 6.48 seconds, top torque 12.43 Newton meters, top speed 25.6, braking 27.6 feet, and range of 11.05 miles. Before we talk about the PSPEC score anymore, I'm going to put in some clips right here of the range test and the concerning behavior on that. All right, so we're out here range testing the Maxfind Max 6. We are currently 3.5 miles into the range test, and we still have full bars left. It was down 1 bar a minute ago, and then it recovered as the sag undid itself. So we'll see how far this thing can go. Honestly, I'm guessing that it's going to be just under 10 miles, but we'll see. The bars last time I rode this dropped a lot faster after we got past halfway. So since this is a 10S 2P, we're just gonna have to see how it works out, but that's my guess, just under 10, probably like 9.6. Also, I should mention we're partway through the higher speed portion of this test, which basically means that I'm at like 90% to 100% throttle at all times to be able to keep up with the 20 to 25 miles an hour. As soon as I hit any percent incline at all, I have to pretty much go full throttle to hold the speed. So just an interesting thing to note about the power of this board. All right, we've done 1 lap plus a bit. We're down to 3 bars, and we've done 7.9 miles. So I think it might beat my guess, but I don't think it's gonna get too much over 10. So we're gonna keep riding, and I'll update you guys once I get to some milestone or if it dies. Well, we didn't really hit a milestone per se, but something did happen. We just recently hit 25% battery. I got the warning on my screen, had 2 bars left. I was like, okay, that's fine. It started going downhill a little bit, and I got to the stoplight here, and it just turned off, and now it's just off. So like, I don't really know what happened, but it's just off now. I do not want to know what would have happened if I made it across and then it died going down that hill, because like it's not on anymore. So whatever. I guess I'll check the mileage in my GPS app since the remote died. I believe it's somewhere around 10.5 miles though, but I could be wrong. We'll check. Alrighty, so I realized I didn't put these charts in the video while I was editing, so here we are. Board range, Maxfind Max 6 comes out at 11.05, and it's towards the bottom of the range, which I was expecting, but the more interesting chart here is the board range versus advertised one, and the story isn't as good here. Sitting here towards the bottom of the list, we have the craziest delta on my entire list by almost double. We have 180% difference between the claimed range and the range that it actually got. And looking at the orange claimed range, it sticks out pretty dang far above most of the other competitors that did get higher ranges. So just driving the point home, please guys, be more realistic. Like, we know that a 10S2P of 50G is not going to get 30 miles of range. Just say that it's going to get 15 and then people will be less disappointed when it only gets 11. This is with a flat ride and a decently weighted rider too. It can get much, much worse. Honestly, the range test was kind of what set me over to make this such a spicy video. I just couldn't believe that it straight up died. I really hate to imagine what would have happened if I was on a downhill and it decided that it didn't want to be on anymore. And honestly, the last percentage that I saw on the remote was 1 bar and 25%. So really concerning behavior. No other board that I've ever tested, even the Meepo E5, has done that. It always had brakes all the way till the end. It never turned off. Technically, the Flex ER did have that happen one time, but it was pushed way to the end of the battery, like 5% or something like that. So, man, what an experience. But in any case, the PSPEC score comes in towards the lower end of the range. It does outclass a couple other boards, the Flex ER, the Rebel Kit, the X1 Max Hub, Meepo V5, and Wave. Not really the highest performance competitors there, so makes sense. It looks like we're missing the ripple on this chart, so I'll make sure to update that before the screenshots are put in the video. But in any case, PSPEC score, it's okay, not good performance overall. And really the thing that is unfortunate, even though the final number comes out all right, the braking is the most concerning thing, that it's really not good enough in my opinion. And the acceleration is just outspec'd by boards that are cheaper than it. So yeah, take from that what you will, but let's hop into the subjective scoring section. All right, this is the section where we go through the subjective score and show you some B-roll of the board. Now, first off, build quality. I did rate this quite lowly, and honestly, the main reason for that is just that I don't feel like the deck is really strong enough. You probably could run this over with a car and it would just bend, but that doesn't really mean anything because when you're standing on it, it bends way more than you would expect. I'm not that heavy, I'm at 180 pounds, and it definitely bends a significant amount, especially if you bounce on it. And it sort of takes away a lot of my confidence in the board knowing that it's plastic. You can have durable plastic things in general, but I just don't really know that this is the best direction to go for a board like this, especially if it's commanding a higher price because it's a composite plastic build. So there's other things on this board that make the build quality a little bit as well. Like the plastic bits on the trucks I think are not really the greatest look. The belt guards are strange and they feel a little bit tacky. The motor mounts seem fine, but it looks like they might even be cast, honestly. It's just a little bit strange. The other major knock on build quality is this awful Griptape stuff. This rubber material is just bad. If you scrape it like I did here on accident, it kind of like knocks the little hills off of it. And then the other major hit on build quality is the fact that you can see the lid of the board through the Griptape, and when you stand on the board and flex it, you can kind of see it flexing under the Griptape, and that's just really unnerving. Not really something that I want to be seeing on a board that I can go almost 30 miles an hour on. So not doing great on build quality for this board. It probably is fine. Honestly, the best part of this board is the TPU wheel pulleys. I think it's just a good idea. And it'd be interesting to see other companies do that and see if they also have the same effect of not picking up as many pebbles as the traditional glass fiber nylon ones. So all of that to say, it gets a 5 out of 10 on the build quality. One of the, by far the lowest of any board. Even the Meepo V5, I rated a little bit higher because I didn't feel like the deck was that bad. In comparison, this just flexes really weird and I'm not a fan. Moving on to the deck, another 5 out of 10. Again, flex is really strange. It's not really that wide. The concave is not super comfortable. The Griptape is bad. And looks are subjective. I think it looks okay, but not really my favorite shape of deck, nor construction. So it'd be interesting to see what they could do with a V2 of this deck, but this one is not doing it for me. Moving on to the remote. This is actually one of the positives of the board, which is kind of strange, but I actually really like this remote shape. It's kind of an interesting take on like the thumb wheel trigger-ish shape. You have a really nice spot to put your index finger, especially with gloves on, and the thumb wheel, it feels okay. It feels a little bit cheap and plasticky, but it does a job, and I just really like the remote shape. It's interesting to see like different ways that different companies do it. For example, I just reviewed the Wildgo 5e. You can see it has a round shape on the end, whereas this one is that sort of flattened shape. And it just makes it a lot easier to put your finger on there when you have that spot to set your index finger rather than having to stick it out further. And this can get uncomfortable over time, whereas I didn't find this to be super uncomfortable. It was actually quite nice. The only downside is, for me at least, my finger does rest on the mode button. I did press that once or twice on accident. Not a big deal, but a little bit annoying. In terms of features on the remote, it is, oh my God, the board is actually dead. Oh wow, I don't actually believe this. Let me explain what's happened here. All right, so I did the range test for this last week, and it was sitting dead for a couple days, and I didn't get around to charging it yet. So I plugged it in today. It was charging for about an hour and a bit, and it still doesn't turn on. So that's really concerning. I guess I will open this up and see if I can figure out why it's not turning on. We're going to continue with the RBEM Score, but if this actually doesn't turn on, I might have to put build quality at like a 2, because this would be like a customer service interaction essentially. So wow, I can't actually believe that happened. It's actually fully dead. Like, I'll plug it in and let it charge for a while longer, but it was plugged in for like an hour. Also, while we're ranting about things, this charger is really slow. It's a 10S 2 amp charger, but it does have the positive of having a nice charge connector. I don't know what the name is for this, but Meepo uses a similar one, as does Ace-Deck, and it's just a nice 3-pin connector with only one way that you can plug it in, and nearly impossible just short on accident. So I'm going to plug this in while I'm recording the rest of this, and we'll try again at the end of the video, but if it doesn't turn on, we're going to have an issue here. Oh wow, it's actually green. Wow, this is great. It was red earlier when I plugged it in the garage, so I don't really know what happened here. If there's something wrong with it. Oh. The light flashed briefly. Yeah, I don't know what's really going on here, so I'm gonna let this charge for a little while longer and finish recording this part of the video. All right, so anyway, the ESC on here is pretty good. Also, the remote, I ended up giving it a 7.2 out of 10. Again, I just think it's good enough. It has a little bit of customization on here and the very basics of what you need to see, speed and trip length and odometer and stuff like that. And moving on to ESC, it does get a 6.5 out of 10. It is fairly weak. It is predictable and smooth, but again, the brakes are too weak and the acceleration is outclassed at this price point. So it gets an average rating of 6.5 out of 10. Trucks and bushings, 4 out of 10. Bad. I don't really know how these are so bad. They just, you just can't turn on them how you want to. And it's fine for going in straight lines, but as soon as you want to carve, it's not very comfortable. It's a little bit tiring, and it's just not as responsive as I would like to see at this price point. Maybe you could make it better with riptide bushings or switching the bushings out, but I review boards in stock configuration for a reason, and this stock configuration is not very good compared to a lot of its competitors. So again, 4 out of 10. Wheel options, I did give it 4 out of 10. It comes stock with these 105mm wheels, and these clear the belt guards, which means you can put even bigger wheels on here and still clear them. So that's good. If you do increase the pulley size though, you may run into some clearance issues with the belt guard and you might have to take it off. Not a huge deal, but worth noting. You also probably will not experience wheel bite. There is a decent bit of riser on these boards. It looks like 2 1/8-inch pieces, so about a 1/4 inch of riser. And the front does have a bumper on it, which is nice. A little bit confusing because you would think you would want a bumper on the back to set your board on things rather than on the front. It's not like you're running it into things on purpose, but there you go. The wheels are Cloudwheel Galaxies, Galaxy Pros, which are basically just like a harder Mad Wheel. They're fine, they do the job, and they roll easily. I don't really have any complaint about them. I don't think that this tread adds much grip to them, but they work well and they look decent in this board configuration. So I gave it 4 out of 5 there. Water resistance, I did give it a 4.7 out of 5, and the main reasoning for that is because it is very well sealed. There is almost nowhere for water to get in here, especially with this grip tape on top, and being a unibody deck, like the water can't get through the composite. So if you had to pick a board to ride in the rain, I don't recall if there's an IP rating on the site. I'll put it on the screen if I find it, but in any case, it seems quite water resistant just from looking at it, and I would wager that it would do a lot better than the completely unsealed boards. However, there is always the opportunity for water to get in underneath this somewhat poorly applied grip tape. So water resistance, it gets a 4.7 out of 5. Customer service, again, 2 out of 5. I've heard some horror stories about Maxfind customer service, and some people have not gotten refunds when they needed them, and they haven't gotten service. Service has been slow. And I've had some people comment on my videos and on Facebook telling me about how their experience with Maxfind was not great. I know this has been echoed in the industry for a while, at least in our DIY communities. Maxfind's reputation has not been great, but I still wanted to look at the board because I wanted to see how it compared to the rest of the boards that I review. That's the whole point of this channel, well, not of the channel, but of this review series, is that we always compare to the other performance characteristics and subjective ratings of the other boards. Helps you make better decisions, in my opinion, and gives you a more concrete way of comparing boards to one another. So 2 out of 5 for customer service, not great. And finally, the last nail in the coffin is the price and value. 1 out of 5, it's just really not here. The price is too high for what you get, for the quality and for the value. It's just not there. So that kind of seals the deal. And shockingly, this isn't the lowest board on my RBEM Score list. That's mostly because the remote is good. So we only have 2 boards lower than this, and this board comes in at a 39.4 out of 70. And the only 2 boards below it are the X-Way Ripple and the Meepo V5. And honestly, this feels insulting, the Ripple, because I love the Ripple. It's honestly super fun. And it's actually Dequan's favorite board. He made a video on this a while ago, but it's just a really fun city commuter. I just wish it had a little bit more battery. I actually took the Ripple on the range test for this to get home, and I barely made it home at like 12 miles an hour. So I really want a Ripple V2. This is way off topic, but it would be cool to have a Ripple V2 with a bigger battery in it. And the other one that's lower is the Meepo V5. Honestly, this board and the Meepo V5 are only competitors because of their performance. The price categories are completely different, and this one being so high at $630 with those bigger wheels, it's not worth it. So I don't know if Maxfind is going to send me a board after this video in the future, but I do thank them for sending this to me and allowing me to show off what they have to offer. I think they have a lot of room for improvement on this board and probably in the rest of their product range. I think some of their advertising needs to be tweaked a little bit, and I just think they need to do better. So that is pretty much all for me on this. The weight of this board is 22.6 pounds. It's on the lighter side, but it's beat by some of the other boards that are nearby in the shortboard market, and the X1 Max is also quite a bit lighter. I would pick the X1 Max over this only by a little bit. This deck is surprisingly better than the X1 Max, simply because this one does flex a bit and it's more comfortable. And yeah, that's pretty much all for the RBEM Score. So let's go ahead and summarize this video. I don't really think I've had any other video where I go in on a board as much as this one, but the fact that it's sitting here charging, but also not charging, and oh my gosh, it turned on. I don't believe it. Okay, what? All right, it turned on and appears to be at full battery. I don't know if it's lying to me. All right, well, apparently it's working. So I don't have to give the build quality a 0 out of 10, but still concerning behavior from it, and I guess it was just fully charged already. It was red when I unplugged it, and then it was green when I plugged it in again, and it wouldn't turn on. But anyway, summary of this video, I don't think I've gone in on another board as hard as this one, and the main reasoning for that is that the price point is just too high. If this was $400, then I would probably be more lenient on it, but $630 for what you get here is probably not worth it for most people, in my opinion. Has a couple interesting and unique features that other boards might be able to learn from, but it doesn't make it worth it for me, and I think you probably would be better off going a different direction, whether it's a different board from Maxfind or a different board from a different company. So again, thanks to Maxfind for sending this over so I can get my data. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review and found it very useful. And let me know what you think down in the comments section. Would you buy a Maxfind? Do you think that I had a fair video here? I think that it was pretty fair, all things considered. I'm just trying to show it how it is, and there you go. Stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.